Hey everybody, and welcome to another model train video. Now, a while back I did a video showing off new acquisitions for my HO scale layout. This involved a few engines, some rolling stock, and I thought it would be cool to do the same thing for my N scale trains. Now the first one, I don't know if this would count as a new acquisition, but you'll see it coming up soon behind my ACS 64. I said, you'll see it coming up soon behind my ACS 64. There it is. And there it goes. I'm sure you've already seen the Union Pacific cars. That's part of the City of Los Angeles set. But I've never shown you this New York Central car. Now, the reason I said it doesn't count as a new acquisition is because I've had this for 13 years. But unfortunately, there was an incident where one of the wheels came off of the axle, and then eventually the axle came off itself. I placed it in a storage box, and unfortunately I lost it, but I recently found it a couple of months ago. And now, I had it fixed. I did it all by myself. And it looks wonderful. Now, we've seen a few of those modern Amtrak trains that still have one or two of those special cars still painted in fallen flag colors, or in this case with Union Pacific, not fallen flag colors. Well, I guess another way to say it is passenger cars from other railroads that used to operate trains before Amtrak's creation in May of 1971. Not every Amtrak train is like this, but if you're lucky, you can find a few of those special cars. I even saw a couple of ACS 64s myself last year. One had a Pennsy car and the other one had a New York Central car. It was more of an observation car, just like this one here, the Santa Fe car. But this was actually on the Pennsylvania, and it was a New York Central car. So I thought it would be interesting, instead of having one car, let's just make the entire train out of special cars. So you've got that one New York Central car I just showed you, and the baggage car and the rest of the coaches are from Union Pacific. I think it would be pretty interesting to see. I mean, this is a normal 5-car consist that you would see on the Keystone line, where ACS 64s usually have a 5-car train running from Philadelphia to Harrisburg. It doesn't have to be exactly like this. I mean, you could try and recreate the rainbow train era of the 70s and just have like one car from each different railroad. I'll send this to Amtrak's Instagram page and see what kind of response I get from them. Like, it would be really cool to see a modern locomotive like an ACS 64 or one of those SC 44s or the ALC 42s pulling a train with like each car from different railroad, like Union Pacific, Southern Pacific, New York Central, Pennsy, Santa Fe, Burlington. Heck, they might even do a heritage unit like Penn Central or one of the other railroads they took over passenger service from. I mean, New Jersey Transit's done it. And we have seen a few other heritage units from Amtrak where they have different liveries, like Phase 1, 2, 3, like literally everything else besides the modern Phase 5 that we have right now. It's possible that it might not happen, and if that's the case, then I guess that's one of the reasons why many people, including myself, have an interest in model railroads. I mean, we can recreate those things that we want the railroads to actually do, but they end up not doing it. We'll get a couple more run-bys of our New York Central car in this almost entirely UP consist behind our ACS 64, and then I'll be showing off two freight cars. They're both box cars. One's from Railbox and another's from CSX. First, let's enjoy watching the New York Central car for a couple more minutes. Or not a couple more minutes, I'm sorry. I was going to say a couple more laps. I always like to slow the train down when I'm close to ending the running session. All the cars will be taken off the track and we'll get another consist set up with the freight. Alright. We're done with this passenger train. The ACS 64 did a good job holding this consist. But of course, our main focus was not the locomotive, but this car. I know I said it doesn't really count as a new acquisition since I've had this for 13 years, but the fact that I was able to get it repaired and ready for this video, I'm just glad I got it fixed up so you guys could see it. Whoa. I didn't realize my breath was that powerful I was talking. I just made some dust fly in front of the camera. I've been meaning to try and clean up this table anyway. I was thinking of taking apart all the track and getting a new layout set up, because I've got some pieces like those bridges there, some straights, and I wanted to try and have these curves connected to the station platform. That way I can set up almost a perfect loop without having to worry about any of the tracks overlapping each other. I'd still like to try and do a crossover section. I still have, as you can see there towards the right, a piece to let the tracks cross over each other. But at the same time, I'm also thinking of taking down the table and putting all the tracks on the floor, just like I've done with the HO scale layout, because I worry that the table will collapse and that everything I have on here will be broken, and I'll have to spend more money on repairs, and I don't really want to risk doing that. A lot of cool things here, especially these guys here, and you can probably see that these two cars are from Ertl. Now, I mostly collect Hot Wheels, but these two cars were a gift from one of my mom's friends, Patty. These Ertl cars are a 1968 GTO and a 1960 Corvette. Well, like I said, I'm thinking of doing a bigger layout that doesn't involve a table, so I don't have to worry about anything falling apart, and I can have more space to actually do what I want. What do you guys think I should do? I'll let you decide in the comments section below. If you want me to keep doing the layout on the table, I will. But if you agree with me and you want me to do something on the floor, I'll gladly do that. I also feel like it would be easier to clean. I can just get a vacuum. I have to be careful to make sure some of these things don't go into the vacuum itself, but I feel like it would be a lot easier to get the dust away from the tracks here and there. Just vacuum like twice a week and boom, you're good. Now that we're done running the passenger train, we will switch to a freight. We will also switch our type of motive power from electric to good old-fashioned steam. Now, both of these Railbox boxcars that I've acquired are from Athearn. However, the CSX car that I'm also going to be showing in this consist is from Bachmann. Both Athearn and Bachmann have done a great job with their respectable cars. But I have to say, I like the Bachmann version better, and here's why. Sliding doors. If you ever want to put something in there to make things more realistic and like give your actual boxcars a load, you can simply open the doors and put whatever you want in there. It may be a little difficult to do so with N scale, but this is also one of the reasons why I like using Bachmann's rolling stock in HO scale. There might be a few other brands that do this, and I've heard some people say that other companies are better than Bachmann when it comes to their model trains, but I digress. I have no complaints with Bachmann. I mean, there are a few things they could improve on, but I'm pretty satisfied with what they've been doing so far. Come to think of it, I could be wrong, because I'm pretty sure this Northern Pacific car I have is also from Athearn, and as you can see, its doors are open. But enough talking about the cars. Let's get the 844 onto the rails and have her pull the train. Okay, number 844 is properly on the tracks, ready to pull her freight, which includes the new acquisitions, that being the Railbox and CSX boxcars. Now, I have to admit, I'm a little surprised that the Bachmann coupler is a lot bigger than the Kato coupler. But you can see here that 844 is coupled up to the CSX car without any problems. I also decided to take a few pieces of my Lego and scrap things here and put them into the boxcars. This included a couple of lug nuts and some tiny Legos. It is pretty fun to have them into the cars, and if you ever have any trouble getting them into the boxcars, I also find it helpful to use a nail, like one of these things. However, I recommend not using the nails as actual loads, as it may put a puncture in the freight car bodies. Something like this especially, you definitely don't want to risk damaging your rolling stock with this. But it is helpful with that thin tip to move things around and make sure you get the load where it has to be, properly positioned into your cars. In total, there are 22 cars coupled up to number 844. And although I said this was going to be a freight, I changed my mind at the last second and decided to make it a mixed train. There will be a couple of officials riding behind these two cars to see 844's progress, and I guess you could also say this is a test to see what kind of train she'll be pulling in the future. Now, I gotta request that for Union Pacific. I mean, if they could have a Challenger and a big boy pull modern freights, or at least for the Challenger, it was modern when it was filmed in the 90s, I'm sure they might have something in store for 844. Let's begin now and see how she does. Hang on, I just realized some of the cars are actually not attached. I thought they were. I think this might be the reason why. I probably pushed too hard and got this derailed while getting it coupled up to the rest of the train. Hopefully that's not the case with the other cars. Okay, looks a lot better now. I was having a similar problem with one of my Amtrak boxcars. I was hoping to have both of them on this freight, but I only had to do one because this one, part of the coupler broke off. So that's another repair I'm planning on making soon. This one Amtrak boxcar looks pretty cool though, mixed in with the Northern Pacific and Union Pacific cars. And now we will resume our freight run with number 844. I've got the throttle set to almost full power, and there was a problem with the track. But everything's going pretty good now. The CSX and Railbox boxcars look pretty good behind the locomotive. So do the rest of the cars. 844 is doing a pretty good job pulling this train, but unfortunately with some of the track pieces, there's just not enough juice going into the motor. You got to give her a push here and there, and she'll eventually get going again. The giraffe and elephant are watching the show, and they're like, oh no, she stopped again. But we'll get her rolling. Come on. Oh, now these two are undone. But they look nice by themselves without the rest of the cars. I might have to move the lens into a different spot so you can get an easier time seeing the actual couplers. Here we go. They're on now. I'm not sure why they got detached. Hopefully now things should be fine. I'm going to get back to the controls and start again. I really have to see if I can transform this period of cans into a hotel. I mean, that was the intention of having them like that. There's also a caboose from 3 different railroads, the Santa Fe, New York Susquehanna Western, and the Great Northern. Now, I could have a few guests stay in there, but most of the people that come to the hotel will stay in the actual cans of soda themselves. I mean, you have certain places like the Cartoon Network Hotel, Hershey Park, Disneyland. Why not the A&W Hotel? I mean, a lot of people enjoy their drinks. Good root beer. I honestly wouldn't mind going there if that was a real place. Well, then again, it was my idea. I actually imagine some people being in there right now, enjoying the departure of 844 and her freight. Are you kidding me? Are you serious? Well, I'm done. I'm still going to use these two, but since 844 derailed, I'm going to take her off the tracks as well as the rest of the train. Remember how I said I wanted both of these to be in 844's train? Because even though they're actually used on passenger trains, they were also intended for carrying freight. Ever since I first saw these when I was 3 or 4 years old, I actually thought they were used as baggage cars or mail cars. Well, that's actually was true. They were used for carrying mail at one point. But I seriously thought they were used for baggage cars like you see with the Viewliners and a few of those heritage cars. By heritage, of course, I'm referring to cars like this that were originally built for other railroads, but they later be repainted into Amtrak colors, and they survived for quite a long time, actually. But yeah, much to my surprise, I found out these were actually used for carrying a few pieces of freight here and there. Surprise, surprise. And with that in mind, I thought it would be interesting to put these two on another passenger train. And now number 396 is going to be pulling these cars, as well as 4 superliners. Could there be any Amtrak locomotive more iconic than the F40PH? Didn't think so. I was worried it stopped on one of the bad pieces of track, but it's still going. There was also a conversation I was having with one of my friends on DeviantArt, Winterstar 93. She posted a picture of a F40PH that was turned into an NPCU as one of the local passenger trains in her state of Washington. And I left a reply on her picture saying that I found it interesting that these engines, although they technically don't have any prime movers anymore, are still in use on many trains with newer locomotives such as the Genesis that initially replaced the F40, as well as the much newer SC44s constructed by Siemens. They've been around for at least 5 years, maybe longer. But the fact that you're still seeing them on the same train as some of the F40 MPCUs, that's saying something. As I stated, the MPCUs no longer have their prime movers, but the fact that they're still on Amtrak after all these years, you have to remember they were originally built between 1976 and 1981. That's saying something. Not only were these engines iconic and popular with rail fans, they still are to this day, but it also shows that they're literally one of the most reliable locomotives of all time. And even though the ones on Amtrak no longer have prime movers, you can still see some of them on other railroads that do have prime movers, such as Metra. I think Caltrain also has a few. And I know I've seen a few on Metro North. I actually filmed a couple of them at Port Jervis in 2021. I saw one in 2022, but it was in a siding. Also, Metro North also has these locomotives that are similar to F40PHs. They're called the GP40FH. Now, they were originally constructed as freight locomotives. However, many of the GP40s and GP40-2s, and I think even a few GP38s, would eventually be rebuilt into different versions with the body of an F40PH. They certainly are unique locomotives. I mean, many of them have complained that they look weird. I mean, it's not often you see a locomotive with a general purpose nose, or like the same nose as the special duty 6-axle locomotives, and yet the body's still the same as an F40. Well, I'd say that about wraps up this running segment. Now, I know it might seem odd to see a couple of freight cars in an Amtrak train, but remember, these cars pretty much serve the same purpose as the Amtrak cars here. They're actually called material handling cars. Like I said, I thought they're used for carrying baggage from passengers, like an actual baggage car, but nope, I was wrong. They were used for carrying mail and a little bit of freight here and there. Hence the name, Material Handling Cars, or MHC for short. It would be interesting if Amtrak tried that again. And who knows, maybe they'd use actual boxcars from different railroads like what you see here. So not only are the Bachmann couplers bigger than the Kato ones, but I was looking and apparently the Athearn couplers are bigger too. You compare these two, they seem to be the normal size. It's a different story though when you compare it to the Kato ones. All the same, if you have enough patience, you can get part of the coupler to interact with the Kato car, get it properly connected, and you can set up a pretty good variety of consists. There's another locomotive I shall be running now, and that is this one, an undecorated Dash 9. Now, despite being a Kato locomotive, this actually does have different couplings than what you've seen on the different trains. These are the types of couplings that you would typically see on Atlas. I am actually disappointed that it came like this because, as you may have guessed, I wanted it to have these type of couplings so that it could pull am fleets or the freight cars that I've shown you. But I do thankfully have some passenger cars that we can use. These came from my friend, the Thunderbird Zero. He got me a set of 5 Santa Fe heavyweights, as well as an 080 steam engine to pull them. I don't think Santa Fe ever had any 080s, but this is still a pretty cool looking engine. I like it regardless. With the way the smoke box looks, as well as the feed water heater, it kind of reminds me of a New York Central Mohawk. Hey, maybe that's something Kato can do. That's another request I have to do. Kato's N-scale Mohawk. Or since they already have the Union Pacific FEF Series 484s, maybe they can also do the Niagara. Now, since the heavyweights are already on the inside line, we have the switches set up to have the Dash 9 go on that track. Therefore, we won't have to worry about taking the F40PH off with its train. Plus, it would be nice to see a train going on the other track. I mean, we've already had the 844 as well as the F40 and ACS 64 traveling on the outside line. So why not have a train go on this track instead? Even on this track, the locomotive seemed to be having a hard time responding. But we're almost there. I think that's coupled on. Let's switch the controller to forward and see what happens. Come on. There we go. There is some satisfaction in running this consist, however. I mean, how often do you see a Dash 9 pulling a passenger train? Give it about 5 or 10 years and it could be reality. Actually, I think it already has. Now, this wasn't on an excursion line, but if you watch the Pentrex video above 3751 over Cajon, you can see a Dash 9 helping 3751 with its consist. And what the hell just happened? I had no way to control the switch from where I was standing, but it would appear that one of the cars attempted to multi-track drift. I swear I didn't try doing this for some kind of meme. I mean, nobody's done that as a meme in like 2 or 3 years anyway. And even if I wanted to, it would end up with a disaster because we still have the superliners here. We'll just simply back the car up with the locomotive and get it attached to the rest of the train over there. The problem could lie with the switch itself, but I think it's the actual car, because these cars are going across. I mean, I may be pushing them by hand, but they made it across without any problems. Let's run one more lap and see what occurs that time. The controller is now set to slightly above half power. You can see there, I was trying to get the train in the shot as well. Hopefully now no problems occur. Ah! Alright. Alright, so maybe there is a problem with the switch, because the first 3 cars went through without any problems. However, this car, as well as the observation car, decided to leave the tracks. Whether or not this problem persists after I rebuild the layout, I'm not sure. But I think right now would be a good time to end the running sessions. Now, regarding my trains, there may not have been a few new acquisitions regarding cars or engines. However, there is one more thing I'd like to share with you. Mini metals. Now, typically, when I get the N-scale cars from this company, they always seem to enjoy focusing on Ford. And I've gotten a couple of cars from Kato. They normally focus on Toyotas or Hondas because even though Kato does a great variety of cars and engines for American railroads, the company itself is actually in Japan. What they do is not too bad. I like all three of those companies. However, I also like variety. And it's great to see cars from more than just three different companies, so that's why I was really happy to see these. Buick itself, I feel, is underrated, so bravo to these guys for going for different cars that don't involve Fords and getting us some more variety here and there. They look very good. Let's get these out of the package and see what they look like. If I can find a good place to prop up my phone. This should do fine, if I can get it in the right spot. Yeah. It's a little weird, but I'm sure it'll be fine. I was hoping to show you, but I'm almost done. Here they are. Now I will admit, these two look excellent. I like the colors, I like the attention to detail. However, I think it would be very nice if you had something similar, like you can have two cars per package, but I'd also like to see if the two cars came in different colors. Have one in brown and then maybe try something different like red, yellow, blue, or any other color. I do like the name of the color though, Bittersweet. I mean, you don't often hear people say that when talking about the color brown, but I really like it. Very nice. If Mini Metals decides to do more Buicks, I'd like to see a few more cars from the 50s or more muscle cars in general. You know, that would be pretty cool if they also did some of those police cars from the 1955 Highway Patrol series. They also had Buicks. Even some Oldsmobiles. Or just more General Motors stuff in general would be pretty nice. But hey, like I said, great job. Mini Metals did a great job on these two. I can't wait to have them out in the layout, driving around, doing whatever. But for now, that's a wrap. I'll see you guys later in another video. Take care and goodbye.